All right, welcome, welcome. I think we are live tuning in here on multiple platforms. So if you're joining us today, so glad you're here for today. We're going to be talking about the 3 p.m. brain fog fix, how to stay sharp all day long. And so glad you're here. If you're tuning in, whether it be on Instagram, give us some love, give us a little, a thumbs up or a high five. If you're joining in Facebook and our Facebook group, if you're catching back to watch the replay, please type replay and we'll come back and, make sure we see any questions or comments and shout out for you as well. So super excited to be here, Helen and I, as always. And today I want to start with a very simple question is what time of day does your brain feel the sharpest? It's interesting. If you think about it, is it morning? Is it midday where you kind of feel like you're in a groove and flow? Or maybe you're thinking, oh man, Amanda, I don't even remember the last time I felt sharp. I'm always having like those like word drops or forgetting names, just drop it in the comments. Please share with us because today Helen and I are talking about something I hear from women over 40 all the time is I just don't feel as sharp and as clear as I used to.
Yeah, we do hear it from our clients all the time. It's one of the number one things that women come to us really frustrated about as they come into their 40s is that they forget things as soon as they walk into the room. They forget things in mid-conversation. You forget what you were going to say. And sometimes it's in these really high stakes moments, actually. I have women who come to us and they're like, this is like a matter of my job. Like I have to stand in front of people in
Yeah.
a conference room and I have to share these things and I literally forget what I'm saying. And listen, that happened to me a couple of maybe 2 months ago. And I remember being in the middle of a coaching call and I was explaining a 3 step process to goal setting. And I got to the third thing and I'm like, oh my God. And I put my heart out there and I said, I literally can't remember what the third thing is. And I've been teaching this for 7 years. 7 years.
Oh,
And what's so important about this conversation today, Amanda, is that it's not like, we make a joke. We're like, oh, perimenopause, I'm forgetting things, but there's actually things we can do about it. And when I look at that day and I reflect back on what was actually going on for me, I had a full day where I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning, go, 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 drinking caffeine to try to overcome the feeling of being tired from exhausted the night before, not taking many breaks and working. And my last coaching call was at 7 o'clock at night. I was
yeah.
not taking care of myself that day. And in this conversation, Amanda, I know we're going to explain to women like it's not their fault. Things happen, days are like that. And you can also do a little detective work to figure out what you can do in order to overcome it, right?
Totally. Absolutely. And I've been there too, right? I think it's normalizing. We do have these moments. This is a reality of life, especially when life gets busy, when it gets hectic. But like you said, Helen, I think the key, what we're going to be talking about today is how to start to notice the patterns
Mm-hmm.
and what can you set yourself up for to reduce the frequency or to really like have more stability and more days where you are clear-minded and where things are, working all tip-top shape. So, brain fog during menopause, we hear that all the time. Like transition is real. There are hormonal realities that are shifting and changing in your body. And we've talked about this before, but estrogen does affect receptors in the brain too. Estrogen isn't just found in your ovaries, it's literally
Mm-hmm.
all over the body. So it is a whole body transition period. And many women report changes not only in memory, but also in their attention, in word retrieval. Like you're saying a sentence and then all of a sudden you're just like, wait, I forgot what I was going to say. I totally lost the word. Like it just disappeared, vanished, right? Executive function, that's a big thing, especially for like professionals. And like you said, in the middle of a coaching call, a dynamic or a framework that you've used for 7 years, that can happen. So the
Mm-hmm.
experience can also be influenced by our sleep, by our mood, by our cardiovascular and metabolic health, our lifestyle choices, and hormonal changes happening during this time in our life. So here's, like I said, the conversation often stops at like, oh, it's menopause. And then we just like leave it at that, right? Okay. But I want us to go beyond just it's menopause and just like accept it. Have us like be in that place of empowerment and consciousness, awareness, right? Of what else is happening in your body that may be amplifying it. So it's happening more consistently or more dramatically. Is it something where you're fine in the morning and you're sharp at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. when you get up, but foggy by 3 p.m. every day? Because if so, that's interesting, right? Same women. same brain, 6 hours apart. It's not like your brain just suddenly shuts off. Like that pattern is information. So a permanent decline doesn't normally just like turn off by itself, which is a good thing. So rather than immediately asking like, okay, what's wrong with me or what's wrong with my brain or is this just menopause? I would want us to start asking, what is my brain trying to tell me? Or what are these kind of like memory lapses? What are they trying to show me? And often brain fog is a whole body clue, right?
Mhm.
It's really about like, let's look deeper below the surface at what's going on in your body. And, your brain isn't just operating by itself. We've said this before with hormones. It's not like you just have one hormone operating in isolation. It's really responding to these signals from the rest of your body, whether it's your glucose availability. Do you have fuel and energy available? Our brain is the most expensive energetic organ in the body. Like it uses the most fuel, the most glucose. What is your stress response? That parasympathetic, sympathetic balance that we talk about so often. Sleep, how has that been recently? Thyroid signaling, is your thyroid hormone converting to that bioavailable form of T3? How are the rest of your hormones? What are your nutrients status and your digestion? And what is your movement? Have you been moving your body, doing some of the consistent muscle contraction, right? And even
Mhm.
how much stimulation you're throwing at yourself. Sometimes we can have a lot of inputs, a lot of like emails popping in, text messages and messenger apps blowing up on our computer, right? That's a lot of stimulation. So those things can all like be in this big, huge convergence of what is affecting your mental clarity, your sharpness, or lack of, because they don't operate in isolation. So we love teaching women to decode their symptoms so that they can make real progress instead of guessing. So when a woman says like, Amanda, I just need something for my brain fog. I just like, what do you recommend? Is there a nootropic or is there a supplement? Like my question is, what if the brain fog isn't the full issue? It's just like, it's not just the thing that we need to look at. We want to look broader than that.
Yeah, yeah. I love this so much, Amanda, because women are already trying, right? They're buying the supplements for mental clarity. They're doing the crossword puzzles. They're trying to sleep more desperately, and they're having a hard time really doing that. They're drinking coffee so that they can perform. You just go looking back on
Mhm.
that day where I forgot the things that I really wanted to say in a framework that I knew like the back of my hand. I had been using coffee to fuel myself because I had such a long day. They're Googling the
Mhm.
best supplement for memory after menopause, and they're trying to do the best they can with that. And the thing is that we don't believe in giving women one more thing to do. It's
Mhm.
actually about figuring out what matters most, figuring out the pattern, figuring out within that pattern what the suggestion is that is accessible, that's going to be the most impactful for their bodies so that their bodies can run like a well-oiled machine from the root problem that's going on, right? Not just from piling on more ideas. In fact, it can be really common for us to strip away some of those things that people are
Yes.
doing in order to try to like put a band-aid on it because it's too much. It's like we don't even know what's going on anymore when there's so many things going on. And for us to be able to pinpoint it and get to the root cause and to be able to give one or two suggestions that can really be life changing is so important and for that mental clarity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting. It's actually just reminding me of a coaching session with Melissa. We both know her,
Mm-hmm.
love her, working with her. And just this morning, she's like, we were reviewing some things that came back from her recent labs and looking at, customization and really what's going on in her body. But she's like, at the end of the day, it came back to three simple things that we had talked about
Mm-hmm.
previously. And she's like, you know what? Like this conversation just simplified things so much for me to understand the impact of really how I'm eating and how I'm feeling my body, thinking about sleep, and even just what that means is like, what am I doing for the 30 minutes before I'm going to bed, like that evening calming routine and getting outside for the movement, the walking that we talk about, right? I guess what I'm saying is like it's just oftentimes it's the presence and the clarity of simplifying. This doesn't have to be more and more and more. It's really going to focus on the things that will move the needle for you to actually see change. So, you know, we say this all the time, Helen. I don't think most women need more health information. We
Mm-hmm.
are surrounded by it constantly on all the social media channels, on YouTube, or all the podcasts. It's great and I love it. But really, what we need is to connect the dots, right?
Hmm.
So today we're going to give you something super simple, and I call this our 4-step sharp mind reset. And here's what I want you to know. This is not a treatment plan, on Instagram Live or Facebook Live. We are not diagnosing the cause of your brain fog. That's not the place for this. But what we're going to do is help you become a better detective and a better observer of your body so you're more aware, because before you can start fixing the issue, you have to look at the clues and really understand,
Hmm.
like, what is your body trying to show you, right? So step number one is to find your fog window. So for the next 3 days, I want you to just notice think about the time of day when your brain fog tends to kick in or be the most dominant, right? Not just, oh, I have brain fog, or losing words. That's really broad. That doesn't really help us delineate with those like 2 millimeter distinctions. So ask, like, what time of day does it start? Is it at 10 a.m.? Is it right before lunch? Is it after lunch or at 3 or 4 p.m. every day? I kind of hit a crash window. Is it only after stressful meetings? Like you said, when you've maybe had a jam-packed day? Is it mostly in the evening, later at the end of the day? Or is it worse after a poor night's sleep? So just notice when this happens. This is going to give you your first clue. Let's say, like I said, you start off the day great. You start off strong and you're going strong until 3 p.m. every day. And then I want you to think about, like, what happened in the maybe 3 to 4 hours before you felt just kind of unfocused
Hmm.
and foggy, right? So really notice, like, what did you eat or didn't eat? How
Hmm.
much water have you had recently in those last couple of hours right before? How many coffees did you have? Were you sitting for a long time and just kind of sedentary? Maybe you had a lot of meetings back to back. Did you just, like I said, have a lot of stressful decisions that had to be made? Like, think about the context, because this is going to be really important, because most women have never actually stopped to pay attention to the window, the timing, and the circumstances around their fog.
Yeah, and we're really taught to only track two things ever, which is or actually three things, your weight, your food, and your exercise. And then there's all these other patterns and systems inside the body that are so important that we can identify that actually help us with movement or eating or our weight. And if we can get to the root cause of
Mhm.
or the pattern or the timing of brain fog, then we can really do that detective work to figure out what it is that's actually going on for us. You may realize this always happens on the days I don't eat lunch until 2, or it's been happening ever since I started intermittent fasting. Or maybe you think that it's only in the afternoon when you've had back-to-back meetings, like what happened to me in the evening time, where I had meetings from basically 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and feeling really stressed out without taking breaks. That for me told me that a day like that is going to cause me to be forgetful in the evening time. So I get to be the person empowered to do something about that. And so instead of your body feeling unpredictable, you're actually gathering evidence and the knowing and the empowered choices that you get to have now because you understand what might be going on for you based on that window that you've identified.
Yes, exactly. So powerful. So your first assignment is identify your brain fog window, right? For 3 days, just pay attention, observe, notice, write down when you notice that focus is lapsing, when your memory lapses, and that's it. Don't make it complicated, just keep it simple, but be aware, right? And then step two, that moves us to step two. It's going to be changing one thing about your fuel.
Yeah, because so many women say I do great all morning and then my brain dies after lunch. It's that 2 p.m. slump. It's I had a friend who used to call it the itis. Like after you eat, then it's just like you end up pretty much feeling like you're gonna fall asleep at your desk. And then what happens? You want to grab the coffee in order to stimulate the brain in order to make it through the end of the day. But that creates this cycle of not being able to sleep and then brain fog that right. We end up making these choices that put us in these cycles and we are well meaning. We want to be able to get through the day. We want to have the energy. We don't want to have the brain fog. But you need to ask yourself, what am I feeding my brain? Your
Mhm.
brain needs a steady supply of energy. And this is where Amanda and I teach the PFFV framework, which means protein, fiber, healthy fat, and vegetables. Are you getting an adequate amount of those things in your meals every single day? Because some of us rely on coffee and toast or oatmeal and fruit, or a salad, right? And you're like, oh, I'm having a salad, but it has like a couple of pieces of chicken on there and it's really not enough protein. So we need to really build an actual meal. And some examples of that might be having enough protein more as an anchor. So in the morning
Mhm.
time, you might be tempted to have like cereal or oatmeal. That's something you're used to. It feels like your morning thing, but you might want to try a savory quinoa oatmeal with greens and an egg on top. Like just try something like that. If you are going to have a salad with chicken, you want to make sure that it's at least a palm sized serving of chicken, not just a couple of pieces on there. And tricking yourself into thinking, well, I'm having a salad, it's healthy. Well, we really need to be invested in increasing that protein and maybe even throwing a handful of nuts or seeds on there for the healthy fats. You could add fiber with flax meal to your oatmeal. You could add low glycemic fruits to your
Mhm.
oatmeal. You can add chia seeds for healthy fats when you're cooking your oatmeal, just to try to get that nutrient density up in the PFFV. It doesn't have vegetables, but we want to do the best that we can, right? With your eggs, have some avocado for those healthy fats, saute your greens in olive oil, and whatever you can add, you want to think about maximum color. You want to try to think about how can I incorporate a vegetable. And so many clients of mine are like, but I can't do it in the morning. I can't eat veggies in the morning. Once you start, you actually
Yeah.
not just become accustomed to it, but kind of addicted to it. You're like, this is working for me, and I feel so much better.
Totally, totally.
Yeah,
It's so true.
yeah.
And I always like to add in here, like, because we often have women in our hormone freedom method that are like, okay, I hear all of these things, but I want someone to just like honestly give me some inspiration with some ideas and then have some accountability so I actually execute and get this done. So if you're ever in that place where you're looking for that guidance, if you're looking for that one-on-one mentorship and you want somebody to not only inspire you with different ideas and how to get creative, but actually have that accountability, loving, encouraging accountability, like, of course,
Mhm.
you can always book a health fit call. I'll put a link in our chat here. A health fit call is a great 15-minute conversation just to explore like what's going on with you with your health right now and where do you want to be and if it's a fit for us to partner and support you further. Helen and I have many different ways that we work with women, but I always like to, to add that in here. But yeah, as you're talking about, the PFFV is so important. So thinking about how you're feeling, that's step two. So your small little action step is thinking about for, okay, these 3 days you're going to be paying attention to what is my brain fog window? Eat a PFFV lunch before you get really hungry, right? So before you wait too long and it's like, oh my God, I'm starving. I need something. So eat before you're hungry. Don't wait until that 2 p.m. because your calendar finally had some space in between meetings and gave you permission. Then just notice what happens to that afternoon clarity and
Mhm.
sharpness and focus once you have that fuel consistently. So this is just like an important distinction is because often, like I said, women here eat healthy and they believe they're already doing that, like Helen, like you said, but healthy and adequately fueled for your body are not necessarily the same thing. So we really want to think about like, yes, there's real whole foods that are of course always great to eat, salads and proteins and chicken and salmon and chia seeds, and those things are all great components. But is it adequate fuel? Do you have enough
Mhm.
of the PFFV components? So, like I said, if it's too small of the portion size or really missing out on some major groups like missing fiber entirely or missing protein entirely, then it may not be doing the job. And you're asking like your coffee or your sugar to do the job that your lunch should have been doing, right?
Mhm.
So, like I said, with our Hormone Freedom private clients, we also cut their time in half because we help give that specificity and that customization so that they can increase their energy and eliminate their brain fog and release weight. We do functional testing, right? We're going to look at your micronutrient testing. We're going to look at your hormone status and see where exactly your body needs support. I'm just thinking of another client who had, we did the testing and saw that her vitamin B12 was suboptimally low. Her folate, which is vitamin B9, was also low. Um, that those are key nutrients that your brain needs to have the fuel, right? So it makes total logical sense. And then actually when we did, normal annual lab work, often we'll look at a thyroid marker called TSH, and that came back in the normal range, but oftentimes normal is not the same as optimal. And when we looked a little bit deeper at her free T3, which is, like I said, that bioavailable form, it was in the lower third of the reference range. And her reverse T3, which was like showing that her body's in that stress response mode that was really, really elevated. So we knew that her thyroid wasn't effectively converting from the inactive form to the active form. And thyroid hormone is one of the most important, like thyroid hormone helps your brain work at a high level. It helps your brain use
Mhm.
energy. We just said the brain is the most expensive organ in the body. So if you're having thyroid conversion problems, if you're having some nutrient suboptimal levels, it's just, inadequate levels, it makes sense that your brain isn't having what it needs to function at a high level, right? This is not a menopause thing per se, as much as it is a preparation thing. Like, do we have the core nutrients and the core ingredients available to be able to, you know, work at a high level? And so, again, the brain is often not the only problem. It's not just necessarily a brain problem. It can be tied to our gut health, and it can be tied to our absorption. It could be tied to our patterns and routines around timing of fuel and so forth. So it's important to look at the whole
Yeah.
picture.
Definitely. And I love how you share all this, Amanda, because it makes me think about our clients who end up having all of these lab results and blood work and everything from their doctors, but then they don't know what they're going to do with it or how they're going to use it. So
Yeah.
not only do you offer all of this really valuable information, but to be able to help them know, well, what can I do? What can I eat? How can I live? What choices can I make in order to improve that? It's not just like, oh
Mhm.
gosh, my doctor told me I have to improve it. It's like, listen, there's this information that we have, and we have an even broader amount and of information that we get to offer our clients. And just the other day, when I was checking in with our clients on the Monday messages, I had at least two people who were like, I feel like I'm doing really well, and I'm about to do X, Y, and Z, and I need a list of easy PFFV things to be able to do when I go on this trip. I'm like, bam, easy. Like, I got you. I got you. I'm gonna put
Yes.
this in our text message back and forth. And there's so much relief knowing, number one, that you're not alone, and number two, somebody's listening and giving you really quick wins, like information that's going
Yes.
to help you in that moment in that week. And I could feel the relief on the other side of the text message after I sent it to her.
Totally.
It's like so amazing that we get to support our one-on-one clients in this way, and that, in our group program, that people get to bring this and set intentions on following through with some of these things that we ask them to do.
Absolutely. Well, and
Um,
like you said, it's almost like having your coach in your back pocket, because it is.
yeah.
It's like when you get stuck, that's the hardest part. I honestly, so many women can relate to, you feel like you're the CEO of your household, right? Whether it's like your professional career, your family, your kids, all the different things you're juggling and managing. And to have somebody who can be like your sharpshooter go-to, like, just streamline this, make it simple and make it doable for me, that in and of itself is probably equally, if not more valuable than like the more complexity of like understanding the functional medicine science and the neuroscience around behavior change and all the things that we help them to do. But it's like almost like I want my cheat sheet in my back pocket, you know?
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
it.
for sure. Yeah, and another thing that we love to tell our clients is like, we make this really big deal out of movement, and we tend to
Mhm.
think that movement is a part of like some calorie deficit. But as you were talking about gut health and cognitive improvement, Amanda, I was thinking about how we often tell our clients to walk for 10 minutes after their meals, and 10 minutes,
Mhm.
particularly after lunch, is so important. And that's another piece of information that we get to encourage our clients, whether in texting or on the sessions with us, to do, because often we tend to think, oh, I didn't get any movement today, I didn't do enough. However, this 1 10-minute walk can really improve cognitive function. And I remember actually posting in our Facebook group, I went out in my heels and my
Yep.
jeans and my work blazer, and I just went out and did it. And I took a picture or a video, and I went live in our group to tell everybody, like, don't make it complicated, just go
Yes.
out. Like, you can walk for 10 minutes in your dress shoes, whatever it is, because that tiny bit, that tiny amount makes so much of a difference. And, I'm not going to tell you that walking cures brain fog, but if you give your body a different metabolic input, you can see what can happen as a result. And I'm telling you guys that one little tiny thing can be life changing and really help refresh you for the rest of the day.
Totally. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to step number three, which is stop using caffeine to borrow energy for later, or from later, really. I mean, okay, so this is a real thing, right? Again, and let's talk about one of these favorite coping, I call it a coping mechanism, and it's coffee. Honestly, so many
Mhm.
women love coffee. I personally am not a coffee drinker. I just have never enjoyed the taste of it, but I know that it's very, very common. It's very, very like beloved by many women. And this is not about like an anti-coffee conversation. This is not about like you can never drink coffee and it's bad for you. No, but it's about paying attention to the job that you're asking your cup of coffee to perform for you,
Mhm.
right? Are you having that cup because you truly enjoy it and you really are like savoring in the smell and the flavor and just like being present? Or are you having that second or that third cup or that 3 p.m., you know, cup of coffee because your brain has checked out and you need to force yourself to like function through the rest of the day? Those are two very different scenarios, right? And caffeine temporarily blocks adenosine signaling, which is one of those systems that are involved in sleep pressure. So over the day, the hours that you are awake, adenosine is a chemical in the brain that builds up. And as it builds up, it creates sleep pressure, which makes you tired and want to fall asleep at night. And then when you sleep, it ideally your adenosine is cleared, and then you wake up feeling refreshed the next day because that sleep
Mhm.
pressure is very, very low. However, caffeine can remain in the body for many hours, and the average half-life of caffeine for like a cup of coffee is roughly 5 hours. So and there can definitely be variation, but for some women, it's like even if you're having that 3 p.m. cup of coffee to help you get through the rest, like the second or the end of your workday, and then, into your earlier evening activities, that means it could be potentially still stimulating for your brain and it's interfering with winding down and adequate deep sleep overnight, which then means you need to have more caffeine the next morning because you're not fully rested. You actually didn't allow that sleep pressure to build up and then be cleared like it fully throughout the night. So it becomes this loop, right?
Mhm.
And that's what
Yeah.
we want to be mindful of.
Definitely. And you can create new loops, right? You can create a positive feedback loop where you end up cutting the caffeine earlier. You get a good night's sleep in the morning. You're like, well, I don't want to live without that. That was amazing. And knowing that that's the reason that you got the good night's sleep can be so empowering that you're like, okay, that's a non-negotiable. That's something I'm doing for myself. And it's not just limited to coffee, right, Amanda? I have women who love their Diet Coke or they want
Mhm.
their iced tea or whatever it is in the evening time or in that mid-afternoon time that feels like their treat. They're really not doing themselves any favors. And when we say that you can make different choices and you can back up your caffeine consumption earlier, and the impact that has not just on reducing, by the way, Diet Coke intake, it's also caffeine intake or fake sugars intake, right? Like there's a lot going on there that can really be improved by having less of these types of things in the body, particularly with the caffeine.
Mhm.
We always think, I need coffee because I'm tired, but it's not necessarily thinking about the coffee as a part of tomorrow's morning energy. And then women get into that tired caffeine, wired, don't sleep, tired caffeine. And for me, when I was going through that, because I would have my afternoon coffee around 3 or 4 o'clock, and I knew I wasn't getting the right sleep. So I would back it up, and then I realized how that was going to serve me. But um, when I can make a choice about coffee, not because I'm freaking exhausted and I want to lay my head down on the pillow, but I can choose coffee because it's enjoyable, because I like it, because maybe it gives me a little energy, but it's not helping me perform even more so that I give even more. It's just a part of something I enjoy. And Amanda, you've been to my house. I love coffee. I
Yeah,
have like three different types of coffee makers in my kitchen.
totally.
But I do shut it down for me between 12 and 1 p.m. I just shut it down. And guess what? I go to sleep at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, latest 9:30 at night, and I sleep like a baby. And giving yourself that window to wind down is so important, which again, Amanda, why we talk so much about the nutrition that you're giving yourself, finding that window where the brain fog is the most complicated, walking after lunch, those things are going to help you stop drinking coffee after 12 or 1 p.m. So we're
Mhm.
looking at a cascade of things that we get to do to support not doing that. Otherwise, it's kind of like, oh, but I need my coffee. Yes. And if you do these other things we've talked about, you actually might not feel like you need to rely on it at that time of day.
Right, right, exactly. So let's talk about like a small little experiment number two you can try for this week is just move your last caffeinated drink, whether it be coffee or the Diet Coke or whatever it is, but move it earlier. If you normally have it at like 3 p.m., experiment with noon or 1 o'clock. Like Helen's like, okay, I kind of have a 12 to 1 o'clock shut off. Experiment with that. See how that feels for you. And just, you know, think about what is the goal here is to have the afternoon caffeine not cover up your clue, not to like be
Mm,
the thing that kind of masks where your focus, where your mental stamina is, right? So if you're crashing by 3, you actually want to know that because then that information again is more feedback from your brain, from your body, from the whole bigger picture, and pair that with what we just talked about. Like I said, eating good lunch, getting your PFFV, walk for 10 minutes, then see what your afternoon feels like and see where you're at instead of just like kind of automatically defaulting to that caffeine crutch.
hmm And this is one of our favorite things coming up that we're going to talk about. Step 4 is the patterns that are underneath of the symptom, because we also know so many women who eat well, they don't drink caffeine afternoon, they exercise, they sleep 7 or 8 hours, and they still feel foggy. Okay, so this is the opportunity where we get to go even deeper because we know that health conscious women are putting in the effort. They do the things
Mhm.
that they hear about that are supposed to really be helpful for them, and yet they still feel stuck and frustrated. This is where they start ordering the different supplements off of Instagram because they feel like they're doing all the things. But the question is, what is the pattern that your body is running? Because women tend to show patterns, not isolated symptoms, right? And there can be 3 women with 3 very different signals that are asking for your attention. And we've seen this with over 428 women that we've coached, and we know that your body will change and that your body changing is not actually the problem. The real problem is not knowing how to interpret what is changing in your body and how to develop new skills, new routines, and new decisions that allow you to adjust your body's hormone changes and feel confident in doing that, knowing that what you are choosing to do is actually going to work for your body instead of choosing to do all of the things and you're like, I'm still not feeling well. And most women really feel that it's helpful to see this hormone shift and to see what's been missing from their PCP or OB appointments. And it's empowering to understand what's happening in the body and make informed decisions, which is why we offer the Hormone Freedom Assessment, which is why we encourage you guys to get on a fit call with us so that we can
Mhm.
help you uncover a lot of these issues that are going on so we can pinpoint for you exactly what to do. And that's what we're working on, Amanda, with 3 women inside of the Hormone Freedom Clarity Experience. It's
Yeah,
amazing. In like 2 weeks, they're like, I've released this weight. I have more energy. I seriously, like this
I
is
know.
Monday. I'm like, oh my God.
Totally. It's like she's like, I just needed somebody to like cut the noise and like
Yes.
simplify and help me to know what to pay attention to for my body. And that's exactly it. Helping her to see the pattern, helping her give her some doable, focusing action steps that really have made a dramatic difference. I mean, I know exactly I've talked to these women too, so I know exactly
Yeah,
what you're talking about. So it's so great.
yeah.
And it's really empowering.
It is. And these patterns can give us some valuable clues. And Amanda, why don't we talk a little bit about what those 3 patterns are so that
Yeah,
we can get to the bottom of
so you can start to see just like getting a little bit more familiar. The 3 patterns we find are first energy and output fatigue. And this is really when, if brain fog comes with like low morning energy, if you find that you have perhaps cold hands and feet,
it?
sluggishness, overall, just like fatigue. It's like, oh, I don't have the energy. I don't have the stamina. Like, and I would say the number one thing we hear for women is just like, I feel like I just don't have any energy like I used to. Difficulty recovering from exercise. Maybe you're somebody who does have a regular exercise routine, but it feels like it wipes you out more than it used to. I want you to understand this is typically like a metabolic issue. Like your metabolism has been slowed for some reason. And we want to, whether it's because of nutrients, because of blood sugar instability, because of thyroid, we want to make sure your metabolism can start to fire up, can like pick up, right? So that's energy and output fatigue, pattern number one. Pattern number 2 is stress response. And you may be thinking like, hey, I can be sharp under pressure. Maybe initially I could be really on it and then completely fall off mentally. It's like you become depleted and you can't stay focused, or you're wired at night when you're trying to unwind and go to sleep. It's almost like you can't get your brain and the stream of thoughts to slow down or to quiet. Waking at 2 a.m. This is also another common pattern that we see with that stress response. Easily feel overwhelmed. It's like, oh my gosh, I just go into overwhelm all the time. So this is when stress response has become a major like driver. The adrenal, the cortisol axis is probably dysregulated. And again, it's a hormone pattern, but it's something that we want to address the nervous system and get your nervous system to have more stability and more support there first. And then that third pattern that we see is the fueling and digestion challenges, right? So this is maybe if like your brain fog comes with bloating and constipation, food sensitivities is a big one, or like inconsistent appetite. Like we have someone who like, I just don't even feel hungry. It's almost like they've disconnected their body, their awareness of their body, and they're just like go, go, go all the time in their brain. Or, there's significant notable nutrient deficiencies, like your cells don't have what they need. Maybe you feel like you eat healthy, but it's not getting absorbed and it's not actually getting to your cells. So this is really where we get to look at the gut in more detail and see that digestion strength and help support there. So again, 3 different patterns. If you start with a hormone freedom assessment, that's a great place. And again, it's not a diagnostic tool. This is not going to say like, it's not very clinical and diagnostic. It's more about like, what is your experience in your body and in your life day in and day out? And then how does that translate into these different patterns to look at? And it's really going to say, a lot of women are like, oh, I have a little bit of 2 of these or 3 of these, and they overlap. Like I said, everything is kind of connected together. But the great thing about this is it gives us what is your starting point? What is the area that's like really kind of speaking up the loudest right now for your body and can use your attention first? Another helpful tool for those of you, if you've already taken the Hormone Freedom Assessment and you've started that and you're like, okay, great, I've got some clarity on that. Now, what do I make sense of this and how can I get more steps in terms of how, what are the kind of that we have our hormone freedom method has the 5 steps that we predictably utilize and customize for the women that we work with. So you can look at the Hormone Freedom Map. This is like a Google Doc style walkthrough where we literally show you the exact lab work that can show how your body is communicating, like really where its status is on these different things. It also will walk you through the exact sequence of how to support your body in what order to start to get some really massive transformations in your energy level and your mental clarity. So I put the link in the chat. You can start with either the Hormone Freedom Assessment, find out your type, or go directly to the Hormone Freedom Map. If you start with that walkthrough, it will also have a link in there to go back and take the assessment so you can kind of see where your body is right now.
Yeah. Well, Amanda, when women actually do this and they follow through with the hormone freedom assessment or with the map, they can really stop blaming themselves and start
Mm-hmm.
empowering themselves to know, well, which pattern pertains to me and which action step can I take for me? It's not just this blanket idea like, oh, I need to sleep more, but I can't. And then you blame yourself for it. Or it's like, oh, I'm so stressed
Mm-hmm.
out, but there's nothing I can do about it. We can actually pinpoint what the issue actually is, and then we can give suggestions on how to incorporate easily into your life. Listen, we know that it's stressful. Amanda and I are entrepreneurs, and we both have 4 kids, like
Yeah.
4 girls. Like we
We're a
we
lot of
both
ladies.
like, oh my God. And so we know that it can be a lot. And but there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing that you can't overcome. There's nothing that you're not broken and you have a life to live, and we know what that's like. So you get to stop saying I'm trying and I can't do anything about it and it just feels hard, or you can take the assessment or go through the map and really get to the bottom of what's going on and take one action step or 2 that's really going to help put you in the right direction. And we know that from personal experience, from being driven, motivated women in our 40s who have gone through this, and we know this works. So it's not random, you're patterned.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's an especially powerful thing when it comes to like really targeted, like looking at the brain fog. How do I move through this? Let's do a quick recap of those 4 steps that you can start with today. Like, first, find your fog window. Really start to pay attention and notice for 3 days. When does it occur and what happens in the few hours that are like right before it? Like what was happening in your day, in your life, and your fuel. Second is stabilize your fuel. Really thinking about building a PFFV lunch so that midday you've got some good nourishment in there. You've got the nutrients that your brain runs on, B12, B9, some of the minerals and things that it needs. And then try a 10-minute walk after lunch to get those nutrients mobilized. Remember when we said a consistent muscle contraction, when you're moving, you actually get those nutrients absorbed at a cellular level. And then step three is look at your caffeine and see if you can push that window a little bit earlier in the day, especially if you normally would have that like late afternoon caffeine coffee or Diet Coke or tea. Let's start to just move it a little bit earlier, 12, 1
Mhm.
o'clock, and see how that affects your sleep and the cumulative days that follow. And then finally, step four, if you've tried all those things, or if you're in progress of trying those things and you're still inspired of like, listen, I really want to go deeper because it's not just brain fog. Maybe I have some other symptoms that are experiencing too, like the low energy. You also have perhaps some midsection weight gain and insomnia, any of those other things. Start with your pattern. So the great, like I said, the starting point is the Hormone Freedom Assessment. Find your dominant pattern, what your body is signaling to you. And if you want to see that whole Hormone Freedom Map, that's the walkthrough where we show you the exact lab work things that we look at, where your body is going to give you clues. It's going to tell you this is exactly kind of the status of where you are in that hormone transition cascade and what are the 5 steps that you can do to predictably create massive improvements in your health goals.
Yeah. I mean, it's not another list of what every woman over 40 should be doing. It's actually helping you understand yourself on a deeper level. And this is the type of thing that you get to do on your own, or you can book that Health Fit call and you can get our support in doing it as well. But definitely take advantage of these resources because this is where we start with all of our clients. And a lot of people get a huge win simply from following through with these things that Amanda's talking about, whether it's the assessment or the map or both. And if you have a hard time, following through with anything like that, the Health Fit call is going to be an extra piece of motivation for you to be able to get started and to actually follow through with these things.
Yes. Awesome. So great to, like I said, start here. What if you are in that space where you're like, okay, I want to understand what's happening inside my body, start with that Hormone Freedom Map. You're going to see the whole walkthrough. You're going to get your Hormone Freedom Assessment. You'll know which of the 3 patterns is speaking the loudest for your body. And then we can assess, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to dive deeper and you're looking at more functional lab work, we can definitely test. We know how to connect the systems in your body instead of just treating one at a time. We don't just look at thyroid. I remember when I had my Hashimoto's diagnosis and my endocrinologist was like, okay, well, yeah, here's your thyroid medication. Never ever had a conversation about how thyroid is connected to my brain health or connected to my cortisol response. And none of that ever was even I didn't have that awareness before until I really got into this world and studied functional medicine science for my own. But we're not going to treat one thing at a time. We're going to look at the whole picture. And most importantly, we decide what to work on first and how to streamline this for you. I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
overall takeaway is so many women say, like, you just make it easier and like it's less overwhelming because I'm going to focus on what matters for my body in the right order. And it could be stabilizing your blood sugar, right? It could be rebuilding your nutrients. It could be addressing the chronic stress issue. It's going to be different for every woman. And one woman's path is not going to look identical to yours. And that's why trying to just find, the random, nuggets and strategies and protocols all over the internet may or may not work for you. It's like save time, save yourself money, save yourself the headache, and customize where your body is and what your body needs now. You don't
Yeah,
need to
for
keep
sure.
guessing.
Exactly. I know you and I spent years, if not a decade, of doing like the work on our own bodies to figure out the patterns that were going on with us that we could try to heal over time. And that took a long time. And the
Yeah.
reason that you started the Hormone Freedom Method and the reason that I believe in it so much and brought, my work to your world and that we've come together like this is because neither one of us want any woman to struggle for 5, 10, 15, even 20 years in my case, not knowing what's going on with their bodies. We want you to do it in 5 months. Like
Hmm.
forget 5 years, we're talking 5 months to understanding your
Hmm.
body and being able to take sustainable action. And that is, it's like Amanda said, it saves you time, saves you money, saves you struggle, saves you stress, saves you digestive issues and bloating, the feelings of low self-worth. All of that
Hmm.
can melt away. And nobody needs to struggle for as long as you and I did with some of the things that we dealt with.
Absolutely. We're here. We're here for you. So we'll
We are.
drop in the chat one more time. You can either check out the Hormone Freedom Map walkthrough and just take a look at that whole sequence. You can, if you're in that space where you want a conversation and want to book a 15-minute health fit call, it's just an open discussion to see where you are and what's the right next step for you. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. We'll be back here again.